Rudibus is a boss hurdle that everyone eventually needs to either party up for or get over in some way, specifically in pursuit of the equipment set it gives from Chaos Mode. Yeah, you technically could avoid it entirely if you had a temporary set, but even then the next stopgap for your hat, top, and bottom would be Eternals. I'm not sure how feasible it is to clear Kalos or Kaling with 15-star temporary Rudibus set. So, I'm making this video to help those just wanting to figure out those bosses, so you can stock up on getting a ton of backups for both your main and alts if you wanted to farm them for money. Firstly, you unlock Rudibus by doing the small questline called Rudibus and Urgent Summons in your Lightbulb tab. It doesn't take too long, and it's not that hard. After you're done with that, I'd also try and make sure you have both your trinodes filled out a bit, and fairly alright IED to make things a bit smoother. It's probably overkill for these bosses, but 75 to 80% or higher is a good mark to aim for early bosses in general. With later on bosses, you'll want to get that to 90 or higher. Now let's fight those baddies. Starting with this clown. Pierre is easily one of the most annoying bosses in all of MapleStory, at least to me. There's not a whole lot to him thankfully, but what he can do can be real annoying if you rush in unprepared. Start off by entering his portal, and get past his little hallway room. Okay, now starting off. Pierre himself constantly walks towards you, and does two main attacks currently, both with his umbrella. One of them reverses your movements, and the other is a close-range smack that knocks you back. As for map-wide attacks, he'll also place down these equidistant areas across the whole map every few seconds. If you're inside one of these areas, you get a giant hat placed on you, and are stuck, until you spam your left and right arrow keys. Small little tip, if you wanted to mash out of this faster, and your keyboard has a numpad, toggle off your numlock, and when you get affected by the left-right debuff, you can press both left-right and 4 and 6 on your numpad. This works on all bosses that have this specific mechanic, such as Damien and Gloom. Anyways, Pierre does these same attacks for the first roughly 70% of his health bar. Once he reaches that 70% threshold, or falls below it, a few things will happen all at once. You'll suddenly have either a red or blue hat on your head, Pierre will stop and change colors, and the AoE hats will also fall across the map. Let's start with explaining the various colors. Purple is the one you're most familiar with, and is the best color for Pierre to be. When he's purple, he has the least amount of attacks, and takes damage no matter what color of hat you have on your head. Red lets him vanish completely for a couple seconds, appear at your location you stand at when he vanished, and attack multiple times with his umbrella, usually resulting in costing all your health and losing a life. His umbrella smack also changes, and now slows you down. Additionally, if you share the same color hat as him, so a red hat, all of your attacks and summons will keep healing him. Lastly, blue constantly spins around in a fiery-looking tornado, leaving a trail of fire on the ground that does a minimal amount of damage. If you get hit directly by Pierre's spinning attack, you get sealed for a few seconds, and can't use any skills until it goes away, or you remove it. He too is also healed by the same colored hat. Both red and blue versions of Pierre stop after a while and swap back to purple for a brief period, and then back to either red or blue, placing another randomized color of hat on your head with every color swap, and also dropping hats all along the map again, no matter the color. Here's a few ways to deal with the same colored hat nonsense to avoid healing him. 1. Either pop an iframe, if your class either has one and or has a short cooldown one, or cast Hero's Will right before he swaps. This one is reliant on knowing once you've hit his form changing threshold. In Hero's Will's case, in specific, within 5 seconds of said threshold. 2. Bind him and do as much damage as you can. Optimally in this case, you'll want to burst him down entirely if you can do so. He's the weakest of all the Rudibus bosses in terms of health, so this shouldn't be too impossible of a task even on weaker characters. Or yeah, just be strong enough to kill him with a bind like me, I guess. Or 3. Die. Let me explain. Dying in MapleStory nowadays, especially in boss fights, essentially gives you 35 seconds to breathe before you're automatically revived by the game. 30 seconds on the grave, and 5 extra seconds as it warns you you're going to revive soon. This is a valid tactic for every boss in this game, with some exceptions later on in party play and such involving tests. Additionally, if you use the resistance link, Spirit of Freedom, you can get an additional 8 extra seconds of invincibility every time you revive, giving you more time to get off some extra burst, and or also some time to reposition and get somewhere you're comfortable with. Anyways, back on topic. When you die in Pierre, whatever hat you have on you is removed, and you're also immune to any hats being placed on you while you're sitting there refusing to revive. That means when you finally come back, you can attack Pierre regardless of whatever color he is, until he swaps forms again. Dealing with the hat should be your first priority throughout this entire fight. Pierre stays in the state of switching between red or blue, to purple, and then back to either red or blue again, up until around 30% of his health bar. Below that 30% threshold is where he gets real annoying. Not only does he place a hat on your head and drop hats everywhere again, he also splits in two. Yeah, now both red and blue are going to be attacking you, and each have their own separate health bars. Now you have to get both forms down roughly around the same time, which can be tricky if you have a hat on you, because you don't want to get one down while healing the other. If one dies and the other remains alone for too long, he can split in two again, so you'll have to be quick. If you're going in and fighting Pierre alone, this can be a bit tough, but in a party you could try and separate both forms, try to balance out their health, and get both down at around roughly the same time. You get a few seconds of leeway to get it right at least. That's why I suggest either using death to your advantage to remove hats, or learn the thresholds to know when to pop Hero's Will, or an iframe skill. I also recommend saving your burst for the last remainder of Pierre's health, so around when he should normally split, you can instead bind and burst him to skip this split phase entirely if you have enough damage. That's really all there is to this fight. He's got 80 billion health, and drops squares that you can exchange 5 of for Trickster Pants, which are part of the Root Abyss set. Next on the list, Crimson Queen is a fairly straightforward boss. Still, some of her mechanics can be much scarier looking than they actually are, so let's sort all those out and get you comfortable fighting her. Once you get past her garden and beat the enemies there, you'll just see her sitting there, not moving. Click her with your mouse a few times to get the fight going. Her faces will keep spinning around. She'll always open up on the same face. This one, where she's just looking at you normally. She'll always come towards you until you're in range, and swipe at you. If you're hit by your swipe, you get affected by darkness all over your screen, except where you stand, for about 2 to 3 seconds. She'll also occasionally hold a skull in her hand, which results in you burning constantly, taking damage over time, and hurting anyone else you're standing near, if you're in a party. This burning goes on constantly, either until you die, or until you intentionally get hit by her final attack in this form, her breath. She'll just stop and wind up a purple-looking attack, and after a few seconds, unleashes a big breath hitting everything within it. It does a good chunk of damage, practically being nearly a one-shot to most, so typically you'd want to avoid it, unless you're getting absolutely annoyed at the burning for whatever reason. It also apparently splits the damage in a party if y'all get hit together. I never knew that. Anyways, the breath is easy enough to dodge. Simply go behind her, or get far enough away to the point where she can't hit you. Though, if you're up against a wall, it's easier to get caught by it, so try to stick around the center of the map for as long as you can. That's not all she can do though. She's got 3 other faces she randomly cycles between. Let's move on to another one. Specifically, this eyeless face, with tears streaming down it. Her swipe is still there, but no longer puts you in darkness. Instead, it poisons you. Occasionally, she'll cover her mouth and spawn a giant, bloody red bubble around her for 10 seconds. This is damage reflect. Avoid doing anything to her attack-wise while she has this up. Otherwise, you'll likely just die, unless you're a class that has ways of ignoring damage reflect, like Kaiser. Lastly, she can also debuff you with this skull above your head, which is bad. It makes it so potions hurt you every time you use them. Thankfully, you can just cleanse it, either with some type of Dispel-like skill, or Hero's Will. She also has a face that's constantly winking at you. During this phase, her swipe seals you, making you unable to use any skills for a few seconds. She also places hearts all around the map, as well as a mirror. These hearts slowly float up and disappear after some time. If you touch any of these hearts, you simply take some damage. The mirror, however, will periodically charm you, and involuntarily lead you towards the mirror. If you touch the mirror while charmed, you die. Also, you can break this mirror with any attacks, and I'd recommend doing so, seeing as this mirror persists throughout her other phases if you leave it be. The Queen's last face she can cycle between randomly is this one with a scary looking mouth. Her swipe this time reverses your arrow keys. She can spawn a gigantic black hole on the ground that just damages you over time, as well as slows you down while you're standing within it. In addition, Her only other new attack during this phase is this skill, where she sucks. Literally, she just sucks everything in that direction if it's close enough nearby. You can flash jump or teleport away from this pretty comfortably, as well as just walk in the opposite direction away from it. And that's all her attacks and phases she has. For every phase, I just recommend standing behind her and maintaining enough distance to avoid her swipes, while also trying to remain close enough to hit her with your attacks. If you see her about to charge up something devious and dubious, just run away or get behind her. She's got 140 billion health in Chaos mode, and drops these squares, called Pieces of Anguish, 5 of which can be exchanged for the royal hat of whichever class type you are. Third's the bird. Vonbon, in my opinion, is the most approachable of all 4 of the Root Abyss bosses. Going into his fight and knowing what to expect, there's not a whole lot of terrifying things to watch out for, really. So let's just fry this chicken. Past his little garden hallway thing, his boss room has a portal in it. Click it, and out he comes. So here's one immediate thing I'll point out. These little clock rifts on the ground control Vonbon's boss room timer when he's standing in their area. The black clocks increase the time by 6 seconds. The white clocks decrease the time by 6 seconds. There's a cap to how high it can go, but played right, you can just keep existing in his arena for quite a while. That's the only thing he spawns around the map. For actual attacks, first off, yeah, he walks towards you, and also occasionally teleports, disappearing and reappearing right where you were standing at the time of his disappearance. Okay, now actual attacks. He swings his cane at you, and if it hits, it stuns you for a few seconds. He'll also sometimes swirl his cane around and fire a little white ball from it. This is practically a one-shot, so if you see him doing this, either duck under it, jump over it, stand behind him, or iframe it as a last-ditch effort if you absolutely need to. Normally this isn't very challenging until he starts teleporting you around to a spot you were previously in. If you see his silhouette anywhere, that means you're about to be teleported in a couple seconds, sometimes directly into his attacks. So try to prepare for and watch out for that. Though this doesn't start happening until he's around 70% or less of his health. Additionally, at that threshold, he'll also start going into the air and slamming back down onto the ground. This is a one-shot and should always be avoided at all costs. Just jump into the air, or again, last-ditch effort, you can iframe it. When he's under 40% health remaining, the clock riffs on the ground, stop spawning entirely. He'll now also sometimes disappear and go into another dimension, as indicated by a countdown timer, a message telling you to go after him, and a portal that spawns anywhere in the map. Once you enter his realm, you're surrounded by darkness and have to find him and smack him out of it. Be careful here, as you'll constantly be taking damage. If you don't have a pet with auto heal, make sure to keep an eye on your health and heal up when you need to. Once you defeat him, after a few seconds, you're teleported out of the darkness and emerge back in his normal map, where Vonbon is now stunned for about 4 seconds. Free damage on him, go for it. If you don't enter his realm and defeat him in time, which would honestly be kind of surprising because they give you pretty ample time, he cracks the screen and you die. Once Vonbon's under 10% of his health, he'll start to teleport away, reappear with wings, and become a tornado for a few seconds, shoving you away from him. Additionally, he'll also be dropping clocks around the entire map that do more damage depending on their color. The small green ones hurt the least, blue takes out about half your health, and the big red ones will one-shot you. He'll keep doing these 2 attacks until you finally beat him. The strategy for this bird is to watch his animations, and stay in the air attacking him when you can, if you're a class with skills you can use while jumping. If not, and you're a class that's mostly grounded, like a lot of mages, you'll have to give a little bit of room for yourself to move quickly out of the way of whatever he's about to do next. Once he starts his winged tornado phase, try to get away from him before he knocks you back, and then attack him from a safe distance with whatever you got, being mindful of the falling clocks. Vonbon's got 100 billion health, the Darkness Realm version of him has 800 million, and his equipment item, gotten through these squares, Pieces of Time, is an eagle eye top. Now for the last of the big bad Root Abyss bosses, Vellum. He can easily be the most overwhelming of the 4 bosses, if you rush in not knowing what to expect. Like with all the other bosses that came before him though, his patterns are mostly predictable, and fairly approachable to go up against. After I explain how to beat him, Hopefully you too might just see him as a tiny little snake. Past his intermission hallway thing, brings you to a big ol' cave with an altar in the middle of it. Click it, and out he comes. First things to note about this fight, Vellum will keep popping up roughly around where you stand, as indicated by this large, yellowish-orange circle that appears underneath you. Sometimes he'll come out and actually attack, sometimes he'll just play peekaboo and go right back down. Regardless, it'll knock you back and do a chunk of damage, sometimes even outright one-shotting you. He also has a couple map-wide attacks. The first notable one to watch out for is when you see this other orange-yellow circle appear beneath you. This is his tail, and it's deadly. Just move out of the way before it pops out and stabs you. Also, while you can attack them and see lines of damage on them, this does nothing whatsoever to his health. I'm not really sure why you can attack his tail pointlessly. Anyways, his second map-wide attack isn't actually an attack at all. It's these falling rocks, and if you're standing in these red circles, they'll stun you for a few seconds. So far, all three of these attacks just kind of happen throughout most of the fight at almost all times, so watch out for them. What can Vellum do when he isn't playing peekaboo? First off, if you see him standing tall, he'll shoot out some fireballs in the same pattern every time. First one close by, the second one far out, and the third and last one somewhere in between both of those. Basically anywhere behind or underneath him is safe, but they can be dodged if you familiarize yourself with where he's about to shoot them. When Vellum's under 80% of his health, you'll even see a massive circle appear in a huge area. Then, he just flies through it like a dolphin. It goes without saying, it's a one-shot, and you should avoid that. Once he falls below the 60% health threshold, he'll get a new attack where his head pops out of the ground slightly and shock the ground throughout the entire map with green lightning. Again, as indicated by the circles all along the ground. They don't hurt too bad, especially in comparison to the tails that'll still try to pursue you, hidden underneath their colors. But still, try to avoid them when you can. Once he falls below 40% health, he'll just kinda go away from you entirely, and then a message will appear saying Vellum is taking a deep breath. Find him quickly. He'll either be on the far left or the far right side of the map, sucking in air. After a few seconds, he'll breathe a beam of fire that incinerates the entire map, everywhere except where his mouth is. It'll also try pushing you towards it even when you're underneath him. So don't just stand still when this happens. And yes, this also one-shots. And that's all of Vellum's attacks. There's not a whole lot to him outside of avoiding all the various circles on the ground, his fireballs, and his laser beam breath. Basically, if you see any circles underneath you, just get out of the way. Green circles are fine to get hit by if you have no other choice, but still, be careful. Red ones are fine too if you don't mind being stunned on that one spot and you think it's safe enough. Vellum's got 200 billion health, making him the tankiest of the Rudibus monsters. And thankfully, you don't even really need to fight him regularly if you didn't want to, unless you wanted a big old crystal to sell weekly. He also drops squares, pieces of destruction, and you can exchange 15 of them for a Fafnir weapon, which is also part of the Rudibus set. It's fine enough to have, but ultimately will be replaced once you start comfortably fighting Lotus and Damien and get some Absolab equipment. These bosses, in my opinion, are probably the first biggest filter into getting further into MapleStory. Unlike other bosses that follow after them, you aren't limited to using potions once every 5 seconds. You can just keep spamming all of them as much as you need to, and only mine each boss's one-shot attacks. They're all also good introductions as to what to expect from future bosses in terms of attacks, falling debris, even tests in the case of Von Bon's Realm. If you have other suggestions for types of Maple videos I should make next, let me know down in the comments. If you just like the videos I make for whatever reason, consider subscribing to the channel. I do these bosses multiple times a week and wanted to thoroughly break them down as accurately as I could, so hopefully my explanations made enough sense and/or helped you beat them in any way. Good luck fighting them. You got this. That's all.